At the family dinner, I caught my brother's fiancé cheating with our cousin. When I told my brother, he said, "You're just a jealous liar trying to ruin my life because you have nothing." My family cut me off completely, branded me as the bitter failure who couldn't stand to see success. That was 5 years ago. Now they're at my doorstep, desperate and begging, because Mickey's divorce has gone nuclear, and they need my testimony to save him from paying child support for a kid that isn't even his. I'm David, 35 now, and those 5 years of exile turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. See, what my family never knew was that I wasn't just the struggling freelance copywriter they had written off. During those years they spent comparing me unfavorably to my tech executive brother Mickey, I was quietly building something they couldn't comprehend. I'm a digital forensics specialist. I analyze data patterns, trace digital footprints, and reconstruct electronic evidence for corporate investigations and legal cases. My day rate is $450 an hour, and I've been booked solid for 3 years straight. The failed writer they dismissed now makes $180,000 annually, helping Fortune 500 companies uncover fraud and corporate espionage. But back then, Mickey was the golden child making $95,000 at his tech startup, while I was scraping by on $28,000 in freelance work. Our parents, Robert and Helen, never missed an opportunity to remind me of this disparity. Every family gathering became a performance review, where Mickey's latest promotion or bonus was the headline act, and my career was the cautionary tale intermission. The night everything imploded started innocently enough. My family was hosting an engagement dinner for Mickey and his fiancée Nina at our parents' house. 40 guests, catered meal, the whole production. Mickey, 32 then, was riding high on his recent promotion to VP of engineering. Nina, 33, had played her role perfectly. The supportive fiancé who laughed at Robert's terrible jokes and complimented Helen's decorating choices. I'd stepped outside for air around 9 p.m., needing a break from the constant stream of wedding planning chatter and career comparisons. That's when I saw them through the kitchen window. Nina pressed against the counter, locked in a passionate embrace with our cousin Jacob, 29. Not a friendly hug or innocent kiss on the cheek, but full-blown, making out like teenagers at prom. My forensics training kicked in immediately. I documented everything. Timestamp, clear sightlines from 3 angles, duration approximately 4 minutes before they separated. Jacob left through the back door, while Nina composed herself and rejoined the party through the front entrance, claiming she'd been getting some air. I spent that night analyzing the situation strategically. Nina had been texting constantly during dinner, claiming work emergencies. Jacob had arrived late, saying he'd been stuck in traffic despite living 15 minutes away. Their body language throughout the evening suddenly made sense. The meaningful glances, the way they'd found excuses to be in the same conversations. The next morning, I requested a private meeting with Mickey. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where I could present my findings without family interference. "I need to tell you something about Nina," I began carefully. Mickey's face shifted from casual interest to defensive alertness. "What about her?" I laid out everything I'd witnessed, providing specific details and timeline. Mickey listened in silence, his expression cycling through confusion, hurt, and anger. "Are you absolutely certain?" he asked finally. "I know what I saw, Mickey. Nina and Jacob were not just talking." He thanked me and left abruptly. I expected him to confront Nina, maybe call off the wedding, at minimum demand an explanation. Instead, silence. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement that our conversation had ever happened. 3 days later, I discovered my entire family had blocked me on all social media platforms. My parents weren't answering my calls. When I drove to their house, they wouldn't open the door. Finally, Mickey responded, by arriving at my apartment with backup. Robert flanked him as he launched into a prepared speech about jealous siblings and destructive lies. "You've always resented my success," Mickey said, his voice cold with manufactured righteousness. "But fabricating stories about Nina cheating, that's a new low, even for you." "I saw them together, Mickey. I'm not making this up." "Nina told us everything," Robert interjected. "How you've been harassing her, sending inappropriate messages, trying to sabotage the wedding because you can't stand seeing your brother happy." The coordination was impressive. Nina had crafted a counter-narrative that painted me as the unhinged sibling whose jealousy had driven me to elaborate deception. She'd provided evidence, screenshots of texts I'd supposedly sent, stories of uncomfortable interactions that had never happened, a compelling portrait of a man whose failures had twisted him into something vindictive. "We're done with you," Mickey declared. "Don't contact any of us again." They left me standing in my doorway, watching my family vehicle disappear down the street. That night, Helen sent a final text. "We raised you better than this. Don't embarrass us further by trying to attend the wedding." So, I didn't attend. I spent that Saturday developing a strategic plan instead. Over the next 18 months, I transformed my career trajectory entirely. I enrolled in advanced digital forensic certification programs, leveraging my writing background to specialize in documentation and report generation. My analytical skills, the same ones that had identified Nina's deception, became valuable assets in corporate investigations. My first major contract paid $15,000 for a 2-week fraud investigation. The second brought in $22,000. By year 3, I was charging premium rates and turning down work. The failed writer had become a sought-after expert in digital evidence analysis. Meanwhile, I maintained passive surveillance of my family's activities through public social media and mutual acquaintances. Mickey and Nina married as planned, with a $35,000 ceremony that Robert later bragged about financing. Their social media presence painted the perfect picture: successful couple, beautiful home, advancement at Mickey's company. But I noticed details others missed. Nina's Instagram posts featured expensive purchases that seemed inconsistent with their stated budget. She'd tagged locations during work hours when Mickey was supposedly traveling. Jacob appeared in group photos more frequently after the wedding than before, always positioned strategically near Nina. I didn't act on these observations. My family had made their choice, and I was building something better than their approval. The breakthrough came in year 4. A former colleague recommended me for a complex corporate investigation involving employee misconduct and data theft. The case required analyzing communication patterns, document timelines, and behavioral indicators across multiple defendants. My report led to 3 terminations and recovered $400,000 in stolen intellectual property. The client's legal team was so impressed, they added me to their preferred vendor list. Word spread through the corporate law community about the forensic specialist who could trace digital breadcrumbs others missed and translate complex technical findings into courtroom-ready presentations. By year 5, I was operating a legitimate business with steady corporate clients and a growing reputation in legal circles. I'd purchased a downtown condo, drove a reliable vehicle I owned outright, and maintained a healthy 6-figure savings account. Then came the phone call that changed everything. My cousin Lisa, one of the few family members who'd maintained contact despite the official exile, called me on a Tuesday evening in March. "David, I thought you should know," she began hesitantly. "Mickey's getting divorced." The story unfolded over several conversations. Mickey had discovered Nina's affair in the most mundane way possible. She'd left her phone unlocked after a shower, and he'd seen a text thread with Jacob discussing their weekend plans while Mickey was supposedly at a conference. The confrontation had been explosive. Nina initially denied everything, then claimed it was a recent development born of loneliness and Mickey's work obsession. But Mickey had done his own investigation, finding evidence of hotel receipts, coordinated travel schedules, and communication patterns that suggested a relationship spanning their entire marriage. The divorce proceedings had revealed the ultimate twist. Their 18-month-old son wasn't Mickey's biological child. Court-ordered paternity testing confirmed what Nina had been hiding since conception. Jacob was the father, and the affair had been ongoing since before the wedding, exactly as I'd witnessed 5 years earlier. Now, Mickey faced a legal nightmare. Without proof that Nina's deception predated their marriage, he could be liable for child support, despite the biological reality. His lawyers needed testimony from someone who could verify the timeline of the affair, someone who'd witnessed it before the wedding ceremony. They needed me. The irony was exquisite. The family that had exiled me for telling the truth now required that same truth to save Mickey from financial devastation. Nina's child support claim could cost him $2,400 monthly for the next 17 years, over $400,000 total. When Robert's car pulled into my building's parking lot, That Tuesday afternoon, I watched from my condo window as he and Mickey sat in the vehicle for 10 minutes, apparently steeling themselves for the conversation. Helen emerged from the passenger seat, wearing the same expression she'd worn when delivering lectures about my life choices. I let them ring the doorbell twice before answering. "David," Robert began, his voice carefully modulated to project authority despite needing my help. "We need to discuss Mickey's situation." "What situation is that?" I asked, though we all knew why they'd come. Mickey stepped forward, looking older than his 37 years. "I made a mistake 5 years ago. I should have listened to you about Nina." "You did more than not listen," I replied calmly. "You accused me of lying, cut me off completely, and let me be branded as the jealous failure who couldn't handle your success." Helen's patience cracked first. "We don't have time for rehashing old grievances. Mickey needs your help with this divorce. You're the only one who can testify about what you saw before the wedding." "And why would I do that?" The question hung in the air between us. Robert shifted uncomfortably, probably expecting immediate family loyalty despite 5 years of exile. "Because we're family," Mickey said finally. I laughed, not cruelly, but with genuine amusement at the circular logic. Family? Where was that family loyalty when you needed me to be the villain in Nina's story? Where was family when you chose her word over mine without question? "We had to make a judgment call based on the information we had," Robert said defensively. "Nina seemed credible, and you'd been struggling with some personal issues." "Personal issues like telling the truth?" "Like being resentful and competitive with your brother," Helen interjected. We couldn't tell if this was genuine concern or jealousy. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with my family cycling through various appeals: duty, forgiveness, Mickey's financial future, even guilt about my nephew's welfare. They painted Mickey as the victim of Nina's deception, who deserved my support in correcting this injustice. I listened to their arguments with the same analytical approach I applied to corporate investigations. Every point they raised revealed another layer of their fundamental misunderstanding about our relationship and my current position. Finally, I delivered my response. "You're asking me to help Mickey avoid financial consequences for a situation I warned you about 5 years ago," I said. "The same warning that got me expelled from this family and labeled a liar. Now that my lies have been proven true, you want me to clean up the mess you created by refusing to believe me." "David, please," Mickey said. "I know I hurt you, but this isn't about our past. This is about preventing Nina from profiting from her deception. Actually, this is entirely about our past. You made a choice to believe her over me. Now, live with the consequences of that choice." Robert's face reddened. "So, you're just going to let your brother suffer because your feelings got hurt?" "I'm going to let my brother experience the natural results of his decisions, just like I experienced the natural results of telling the truth 5 years ago." I closed the door on their protests and returned to my evening routine. They'd shown me exactly who they were 5 years ago, when they prioritized maintaining their preferred family narrative over listening to inconvenient truths. I was simply returning the same energy. The phone calls started the next day. Mickey, Helen, Robert, even some aunts and uncles I hadn't heard from in years. Each conversation followed a similar pattern: appeals to family loyalty, guilt about letting a child suffer, warnings that I'd regret this decision forever. What none of them understood was that I'd already moved past needing their validation or approval. The successful forensics business, the financial security, the professional respect I'd earned, all of it had been built without their support or recognition. I didn't need them to validate my worth because I generated my own evidence of value. 3 weeks after their initial visit, Lisa provided an update on the divorce proceedings. Mickey's lawyers had tried to build their case without my testimony, but Nina's legal team had successfully argued that any evidence of premarital infidelity was hearsay without corroborating witness testimony. The timeline remained disputed, leaving Mickey vulnerable to the child support claim. Jacob, meanwhile, had been content to remain a silent partner in the affair until legal paternity forced his hand. He was now facing his own support obligations while maintaining his relationship with Nina, a complex arrangement that satisfied no one completely. 2 months later, the harassment escalated. Robert and Mickey appeared at my office building, demanding access to see me. When building security refused them entry without my permission, they waited in the parking garage for 3 hours until I left for the day. "This has gone on long enough," Robert announced as I approached my car. "You're destroying Mickey's future out of spite." "I'm not destroying anything," I replied. "I'm simply declining to repair damage you caused 5 years ago, when you chose loyalty to Nina over truth from me." Mickey looked desperate now, the confident executive replaced by a man facing financial ruin. "David, I'll do anything. I'll admit I was wrong, apologize publicly, whatever you need. Just please help me end this nightmare." What I needed was my family to believe me when I told the truth. That opportunity passed 5 years ago, when you chose to exile me instead. "We made a mistake," Helen said, joining the conversation. "People make mistakes, David. This is your chance to be bigger than we were." "No, this is your chance to experience consequences for the choice you made. I spent 5 years learning to succeed without family support. Now, Mickey gets to learn the same lesson." The final confrontation came 4 months later, when Robert attempted to ambush me at a professional networking event downtown. He'd somehow learned about my attendance and cornered me during the cocktail reception. "I raised you better than this selfishness," he said, his voice carrying across the crowded room. "Your brother is facing financial ruin while you play games with family loyalty." Several colleagues turned to observe our exchange, and I realized this was Robert's strategy: create public pressure by making me appear unreasonable in front of my professional network. I responded in the calm, measured tone I used during expert witness testimony. "Robert, you raised me to tell the truth regardless of consequences. 5 years ago, I told the truth about Nina's affair and was expelled from our family for it. Today, you're asking me to rescue Mickey from the consequences of your decision to ignore that truth. I'm simply applying the same standard you taught me. Actions have consequences, and truth matters more than convenience." The room had gone quiet, with nearby conversations stopping as people recognized the drama unfolding. Robert's face flushed as he realized his public confrontation had backfired, positioning him as the aggressor pursuing his son through a professional event. "We can discuss this privately if you'd like," I continued, "but I won't be pressured into fixing problems you created by rejecting my honesty 5 years ago." Robert left without another word, and several colleagues approached me afterward to offer support. One, a partner at a major law firm, mentioned that my reputation for integrity was part of why their firm exclusively used my services for sensitive investigations. The professional validation reinforced what I'd learned during my exile years. My worth didn't depend on family recognition or approval. I'd built something valuable independently, and their attempts to leverage relationships that no longer existed only highlighted how dramatically our positions had shifted. The legal resolution came 6 months later through Lisa's updates. Mickey's divorce had been finalized with a settlement that required him to pay $1,800 monthly in child support until the boy turned 18, a $324,000 obligation based on his income and the court's determination that he'd functioned as the child's father, regardless of biological paternity. Nina had received their jointly owned home plus half of Mickey's retirement accounts. Jacob, now legally established as the biological father, was also liable for support payments, creating a complex arrangement where the child received financial support from 2 men while living with Nina. Mickey's career had suffered during the prolonged legal proceedings. The stress and distraction had affected his job performance, resulting in his departure from the VP position. He'd found new employment at a smaller company with a $30,000 salary reduction, making the child support payments a significant financial burden. Robert and Helen had contributed $45,000 toward Mickey's legal fees, depleting most of their retirement savings. The family that had exiled me for threatening their financial security had ultimately bankrupted themselves, trying to manage the consequences of ignoring my warning. Nina's victory proved Pyrrhic. While she'd secured financial support from both Mickey and Jacob, maintaining relationships with both men created ongoing drama and instability. Jacob's resentment about the forced paternity revelation strained their relationship, while Mickey's bitterness about the deception and financial impact poisoned any co-parenting cooperation. Today, I maintain my successful forensics consultancy with corporate clients who value expertise and integrity. My annual income has grown to $240,000, and I own my condo outright, plus maintain substantial investment accounts. The professional recognition I'd craved during my struggling writer years came naturally once I focused on developing skills rather than seeking family approval. I still hear occasional updates through Lisa about Mickey's ongoing struggles with child support payments and bitter co-parenting arrangements with Nina and Jacob. Robert and Helen, now in their 70s, live on significantly reduced retirement funds after depleting their savings for Mickey's legal defense. None of them have contacted me directly since the confrontation at the networking event. They've apparently accepted that I won't be manipulated into solving problems they created by refusing to believe me 5 years ago. The irony remains beautiful in its symmetry. They destroyed our family relationship to protect Nina's reputation and Mickey's happiness. In the end, Nina's deception cost Mickey hundreds of thousands of dollars, destroyed Robert and Helen's financial security, and created exactly the family drama they'd tried to prevent by silencing me. Sometimes the best revenge is simply allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their choices. Mickey chose Nina over truth. My parents chose comfortable lies over difficult honesty. Nina chose deception over integrity. I chose to build a life independent of their approval or validation. 5 years later, that choice has proven itself repeatedly while their choices continue generating exactly the chaos and expense I'd tried to help them avoid. The family that exiled me for telling inconvenient truths learned too late that truth doesn't disappear just because you refuse to acknowledge it. It waits, compounds interest, and eventually presents a bill that can't be negotiated away.